Do you find yourself discouraged? Do you feel like you're dismayed? Well, maybe the problem is the direction of your gaze. What if you altered your perspective and looked up? You might just find that you're amazed. So look up. Don't get discouraged. Look up. You'll be encouraged. Because it's a great day to be alive, and it's a great day to grow inside. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Look Up, a show I created to build you up, strengthen your faith, and equip you for life's challenges. And each show is designed to give you something to think about, to process and reflect upon, and leave you with something to smile about so that your soul can feel refreshed. So my goal is to help you kind of heal from some of those wounds of our past, the things that have hurt us in this life that sometimes we just kind of push down and don't really deal with. If we can heal from them, then we can become whole. We can become someone that can encourage and strengthen people instead of going around hurting other people. This saying, I love this saying, that courage is what it takes to stand up and speak, but courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen. So I just applaud you for taking the time to sit down and listen for 30 minutes and really reflect a little bit and kind of learn alongside me. These are lessons that I've learned myself along the way. So I don't speak them in ways of saying that I've got it all together, but I've learned along the way myself some of these lessons that I really want to pass on to you. So I hope you enjoy them. Because it can be difficult to love others if we don't love ourselves. And that's what I talked about in episode 1, that value and identity. If we can understand who we are and our value, then it's easier for us to go around loving others. But if we don't like who we are and we're struggling with that, it can be really hard for us to show love and value to other people too. And then in episode 2, I talked about perspective and how important it is for us to change the way we see things. So we can choose to look at our life and our situations differently, and that can really empower us along the way. So for today, grab some paper and pencil so you can dive a little deeper into the topic of the power of our words. So I want you to take a minute and think about some of the most powerful words that were ever spoken to you. Maybe you thought of some words that were encouraging and loving, but maybe some hurtful words came to mind. And the fact that we're able to recall words that were spoken to us sometimes many, many years ago shows and demonstrates that power that our words have. They have a lingering effect. And that should kind of humble us a little bit and get us pausing and thinking about that before we speak. But often we don't. We just say what's on our mind and then we move on. But the fact that you remembered some words that were said to you many, many years ago really should help us kind of, again, reflect and think a little harder on the words that we choose to speak. Because once they're spoken, they're out there. Now we can go back and we can ask for apologies and, people can give us that grace and, forgive us for the things that we've said. But once they're out there, they're out there. So it's better to be wise in what we speak. So I'm going to take you through some things I've learned along the way about this and really help you to think about that. Because I've heard it said, and I thought this was so powerful, that when you change your words, you can change then your thoughts. And when you change your thoughts, it'll start to change your actions. So that's what we want to do. So let me give you some tips and share some of that with you. One thing is that, and we can all attest to this, we do not think clearly when we're in a highly emotional state. We've all said things we later regretted when we were upset, we were stressed out, maybe we were angry. So it's really important that we pause and not allow ourselves to speak when we're in that state. Because what's in us, often the things, the emotions that sometimes we push down deep inside, that come up to the surface, that rises to the surface when we're in that stressful, emotional, angry type state. So it can highlight when that happens. I use it as a lesson. It can highlight things that are in me that I still need to work on. Maybe it's something I need to talk to the person about. Maybe it's a discussion that needs to be had. Maybe there's some unforgiveness there that I need to work on myself. So when we react in those situations, just let it be a lesson for you. Again, I always go back and apologize when I mess up, but if we can learn and pause before, it's even better. So there was a guy who did a lesson on this, and I'm going to speak on that here in just a moment. But it really helps illustrate this idea of what happens in our minds. So going back to, it's not great to make decisions when we're in a very emotional state. Proverbs in the Bible has some great words for us to reflect upon on this. So Proverbs is a book of wisdom. If you go to the Bible and look and read through Proverbs, we can learn so much just reading through the book of Proverbs. So I encourage you to do that. There's so much wisdom in there on just living life differently and getting wisdom from God. Again, if God created us, he knows us better than we know ourselves. So if we can learn from him, it's better than trying to stumble through life and trying to figure it out ourselves. A fool vents their feelings, but a wise person holds them back. Abraham Lincoln said it a little better, and I kind of like the way it's said this way. Better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. And then the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. And I think when we read that, sometimes we're like, our heart is desperately wicked. But it's that idea that, again, we can't always trust and go by our emotions. And again, we've all lived that, where we've reacted and acted out in our emotions, and then we later regretted it because that emotional state isn't something we can often trust. We realize later it's not valid, right? So we were acting out of emotions. But I love the way Abraham Lincoln rephrased it. That it's better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to open our mouth and remove all doubt. And I've done that myself. I've opened my mouth and looked foolish. So lesson learned. That's why we learn. That's why we grow. So how do we learn to manage our emotions then? This is what I was referring to. It's called flipping your lid. So Dr. Dan Siegel, he was a professor. He created this hand model. And a lot of times it's used with youth, but it helps us understand it as well. That our arm is the brain stem, and then our thumb represents the amygdala. The amygdala is that midbrain. It's like our guard dog. So it's the emotional brain that takes control. The frontal cortex are the fingers that wrap around it, and that's like a wise owl. So it's our rational, logical brain. So what happens is when we're in that fight or flight kind of situation, we feel like maybe we're not safe, that frontal cortex, the wise, rational part of our brain, kind of flips up and we start moving out of that midbrain, that amygdala. So it's like the guard dog. It bites, right? So it reacts. It's the fight or flight. It's important for us sometimes to have that, but we often aren't in danger, and yet we're reacting out of that emotional part of our brain. So how do you get that frontal cortex to start thinking again logically? We need to calm ourselves back down. We need to let ourselves know, I'm safe. It's okay. So we take a few deep breaths. We calm our heart rate back down. And when you do that, I mean, even just taking 5 good deep breaths, you'll notice, I feel like I can think a little clearer now, because we're not thinking out of that emotional part of our brain. So I think that's important. They teach that to children so that children can kind of say, and it's kind of cute when you hear them, being taught in school, like they'll call each other out, like, you just flipped your lid. But, we need that reminder as adults as well that, yes, I just flipped my lid. I need to calm down. I need to not speak when I'm emotional. I need to let them, keep my mouth closed so that I don't look a fool, right? So a good lesson to pass along that I thought you would enjoy seeing. The other thing is that idea that we can take control over the words that we speak. And again, sometimes people run with their emotions and they just, they speak what's on their mind, and they look out of control. We are to control our thoughts. We are to control our words. That's wise. So the serenity prayer is one that's, you hear often, especially in recovery, they speak the serenity prayer. And I think there's, again, so much wisdom in that. So it says, God, grant me the serenity or the peace to accept the things I cannot change, to the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that is wisdom. When we can see things that are out of our control. So many people try to control things that are out of their control. We can't control other people. We can't control their words. We can't control their actions, but we can control our response and our reaction to those situations. That is in our control. So there's peace when we learn that and we start moving in that. This is what I can control. I can control how I respond. I can control that I can forgive and let go and not let it, like we talked about in the last episode, how, unforgiveness just wraps us up. When we can just let it go, let the person off the hook, it lets us off the hook. So we're not caught up in all of that. And that reminder that we talked about in one of the last episodes too, that our mind is like a mailroom with thousands of thoughts flooding in it each day. And it's up to us to decide, what are we going to keep and what are we going to trash? So we can decide that if someone says stuff about us or different thoughts we have in our head, we can catch those thoughts and think, nope, I'm not going to entertain those. I'm going to toss those. So that helps us to let go of some of the things that we are carrying, let go of some of those hurtful things and words that were said to us, and take our personal power back. So we're no longer a victim of our life. We become victorious. So words can hurt and words can heal. Again, we covered that earlier when we remembered those words that hurt us and words that encouraged us and lifted us up. So we can tear ourselves and other people down with our words, or we can build people up. The choice is ours. So part of that choice is we have the choice if we're going to use our words each day to complain, to gossip, to slander one another, to tell lies. And God says to do everything without complaining or arguing, that the Lord hates a lying tongue. And when you think about it, the enemy is a liar. He cannot tell the truth if he tried. So he loves division. And when you think of the attributes of the enemy, that's exactly what some of us end up following, because we're doing the same things. We're telling those lies. We're using our words to cause division among people instead of bringing unity and love and, not complaining and arguing. So it builds our relationships instead of destroys them. And it allows us to not have those feelings of regret and shame for the things that we've done. So instead, we can choose to be thankful. We can choose to edify and encourage one another. We can choose to be grateful. So I love sending notes of encouragement. I guess I've kind of always done this in one way or another. And when I started making these online videos, one of them was on the Smile Squad. And I kind of made it a little bit as a joke, because as a kid, I was always this happy kind of kid that had smiley faces on their locker. And I was always trying to encourage other people, and usually got made fun of for it. But I tried to just keep going because I knew it was important. I knew people needed it. So when I made my videos with the tagline of, now that's something to think about and here's something to smile about, I thought, we had a community outreach event, and I thought, oh, let's do like a smiley face theme. And, it'll be a way to talk about the mental health moment videos that I make. And so we made these smiley face t-shirts, and they really liked them. So then I had this thought of, I really want some smiley face Post-it notes that can tell people about my videos. And I pushed and pushed until I got them made that said, join the Smile Squad and pass along some cheer. So I carry these with me everywhere I go. My husband can attest to this. Every time we go out to eat or I go to a store, I'm always looking for an opportunity to write someone a little note of encouragement, whether it be to give them a compliment, whether it be to just let them know I'm thinking about them, or that, I appreciate what they're doing. And I'm always amazed at the responses that I get. I mean, I know that we all need encouragement, but I have had, and my husband was kind of brought to tears truly the one time. I hope he doesn't mind that I share this. We can be emotional, I guess, right? So we were out to eat, and this server was really struggling. I mean, they had dropped a dish. They were really crowded. So I thought, they need a Smile Squad note. So I took some time. I wrote them a little encouragement, told them they were doing a great job. And when I went to hand it to her, like I was trying to tell her, like, this is what I do. I make these little videos, blah, blah, blah. She had both hands out to grab it. And my husband's like, Did you see how she tried to take your note from you before you even finished talking about it? Because he said she acted like that was a piece of gold. Like she was, grabbing it with both hands. She couldn't get it fast enough. And I said, that's why I do this, because I know people need them. I've had people stop me and, start crying, telling me about something they were struggling with. The one lady had just lost her mom, and I had just wrote her a little note of encouragement. I can't remember what it was for that day. And she just started crying, and she said, you have no idea how much I needed that. So I encourage you, even though you don't have Smile Squad notes, that you can write notes of encouragement, and you can pick people up, and you can allow your life to be something that gives back. And the fact that I don't think enough of us do this, because again, the fact that they treat those like they're gold when I hand them out tells me that they need more of them. So set the example for others. And there's even been studies that have been done that waitresses and waiters that say thank you on the bill get an 11% more of a tip. So, it pays to be kind. It pays to show others that you care. And I always like to say there's a lot of hurting people out there that really want to know, does anybody really see me? Does anybody really care? And that can be you. So it's time for a short commercial break. I'll see you back here in just a moment.
Hello, we are the MD and Chef team. I'm nutritional chef Michael, joined by my beautiful wife, Dr. Isabel, medical doctor and suicide survivor.
Yes, I was dropped into the world of mental illness back in 2013, and by the grace of God, I survived suicide. But here's what I learned. We don't have a mental illness issue. That's the downstream event. We're focusing downstream. We should be focusing upstream on our brain health and all the things that we can be doing to support our brain health. Because you see, it's like mopping up the floor when the sink is overflowing instead of turning off the faucet. So come and join us on the MD and Chef Team show.
Come join us.
Hello, my name is Charles Schultz, host of The Edge of Greatness. I hope you choose to join me on a journey into discovering the greatness in your life through the exploration of 7 pillars: purpose, mindset, resilience, discipline, commitment, people, and courage. Hope to see you there.
One week after launching our exclusive sneak peek, NGBN TV was live for 3 days of continuous coverage from Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas.
NGBN TV is live from Las Vegas for Super Bowl 58.
The one-of-a-kind streaming TV network for men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s was the conversation for the big game about men's mental health. In the world of athletes, celebrities, and influencers, we're on notice. But we're just getting started with new partnerships announced like the Team Nike 3-on-3 Championship and new platforms available to download the NGBN TV app. So, what are you waiting for? Download the app today from your favorite streaming device or check us out at ngbn.tv. This is NGBN TV.
Hi, welcome back. Did you know that you can be part of this powerful movement that's aiming to equip and empower people to live their best lives? But we would love your help. You can stand with me on this lookup show and support the work that I'm doing to help build others up, to give people hope, to reduce suicide rates. You can scan that little QR code and look up. It'll take you to the Stand with the Lookup Show PayPal account where you can donate once, or you could stand with me monthly to help propel this important work forward. And then you get the bonus of feeling the joy and the blessings that come when we use what we have, our resources, to help others around us. So thank you. Now, you're going to really enjoy this. This is some research I came across when I was asked to be a keynote speaker for a youth summit. And I was doing a talk on the power of our words. So I started researching and looking into, how do our words affect us physically? And what I found was just astonishing. So the first one I'll take you through is, it was done by IKEA. They did a little video, a little experiment, if you will, on the effects of bullying, and they compared it with a plant. So take a look at this. Isn't that amazing? I don't know that I understand it, how it happens, but all they had were these words that were spoken. The plants were in identical situations, given identical, light, food, all of that conditions. The difference was they had the kids recording positive messages that were spoken over the plant and the one, and then discouraging, bullying type messages for the other. Pretty amazing. You can't deny the results in 30 days, what happens. So if it did it to a plant, what's it do to us? Here's another one I came across that you're really going to enjoy. So this was a Japanese scientist, Dr. Emoto, and he wanted to see, because our words have vibrations to them, he wanted to see what would happen if he froze water, what kind of images would be created from the vibrations of our words. Check this out. So look at the thank you versus the you make me sick, the water molecule before prayer and after prayer. He compared it with Mozart, listen to me, music. So he was looking at heavy metal music versus, symphony type music. Look at those creations that were formed. I mean, some were very harmonious, rhythmic patterns, and others were very chaotic. And what really hit me when I started thinking about this is that our very bodies are composed of over 60% water. So what do the words that we surround ourselves with, the things we watch on TV, the music we listen to, the words we speak, and the words that are spoken to us, what are they doing to the water inside of our very bodies? And they've been able to connect with our physical health and our mental health going together with those words and, illness. People that speak a lot of anger, that are around, angry type harsh situations, tend to be sick more often. They get more disease. So it lines up right with this experiment that Dr. Emoto did. And I just think that's really powerful. It's powerful to think that the very words that we speak, and they've done studies on praise and worship. So those that spend more time in praise and worship when they sing, it lights up different parts of our brain. So we have more things lighting up. They found that it increases healthy brain cell development. It decreases our blood pressure, and it increases serotonin and dopamine, which are chemicals that are known to help us feel good, release stress. So again, the physical connection with the words that are spoken are really powerful. So we have the choice. The Bible talks about this. We can choose to speak life, or we can choose to speak death. So we have that choice. And I think a lot of times, again, we don't realize the power we have in our hands. There's so much wisdom from God. Again, if we look at what God tells us, looking through the Bible, looking through the book of Proverbs, read the book of Proverbs. You'd be amazed at all the wisdom that's in there. A lot of times people take that wisdom out and people think it came from, all these different people, but it actually came from the Bible. Look at that, because it really does teach us how to live better. And if we follow God's guidelines, so to speak, he had more wisdom than we have. He knows his thoughts are higher than our ways. He knows more about how to navigate this life than we do. So if we follow that, we'll find that we feel more peace and joy in our life. So let's take a look at Proverbs talks about, Jesus tells us that our tongue is like a rudder on a ship. It's a tiny part of our body. And just like the rudder on a ship that you just saw, it's a tiny part of the entire ship, but it guides that ship in one direction or another. Or like the bit in a horse's mouth. Again, a very tiny part that is in the horse's mouth, but it allows the horse to be steered in one direction or another. Or God tells us that it's like a spark that sets the whole forest on fire. So again, that analogy, that powerful imagery that God gives us of how powerful our words are, is really important for us to think about and meditate. So I want you to think about, how has your life gone in one direction or another based on the words that you spoke? You can probably think about some days that went in a bad direction because you were speaking some words, and maybe you turned and reversed the course based on some other words that you spoke. I know for myself, I can think about a day that I would say was one of the worst days of my life when I found out our sweet dog had cancer, and I was at the vet. And I went to check out, and I was talking to the receptionist, and I asked her about her day, and it was snowing that day. And she said, I'm really not looking forward to trying to go home because the roads are slippery and I need 2 new tires and I just can't afford them right now. And when I got in the car to get ready to leave, I was sitting there and God just spoke to my heart. I just felt like he said, you can do something to make her day better. And I thought, it was a lot of money to buy 2 new tires. But I thought I could buy her 2 new tires. I could make her life better. So I went and prepaid for 2 new tires, and I was like a kid on Christmas Day. I was so excited to go back and tell her because I knew she wasn't expecting it and I knew she couldn't repay it and I didn't want her to, but it felt so good to be able to, we cried together, and I thought what would have been the worst day ended up being one of my favorite days looking back because I was able to bless her and make her day so much better just by giving a little extra of myself. So that speaks again to those powerful principles that I just spoke of, that we have the power to change our life in one direction or another. We just have to be obedient to it. I didn't really want to give up that money that day, to be honest, but I knew it would bless her, and it was hard for me to say no. And now I look back and think that was the best money I ever spent. That felt so good. I felt kind of selfish that it felt that good myself, but that's what we can do with the power of our words and our choices. So God speaks things into existence. He said in Genesis, let there be light, lights come on and shine. And on they came. They were spoken into existence. And likewise, we can speak his life-giving words in our life. We can choose to speak the words that will give life and power in this world. And I'm going to leave you one last thing before we close on up. This Psalms 23. I loved hearing about that. How the shepherd pours the oil over the sheep to stop the tormenting insects because these sheep will kill themselves. These insects burrow into their ears and their nose and their eyes, and they will beat their head against a rock until they die because it's so tormenting. So when we allow God to pour his anointing oil, his wisdom over our lives, when we take that in, it allows us to have that peace that comes over us. We don't have to be tormented by all of our thoughts and all of this, the things the enemy tries to do and trips us up in this life. So I thought that was a beautiful imagery that you would also enjoy seeing. So I'm going to leave you with that last bit to catch yourself in the words that you speak, to be encouraged that you have the power to go in one direction or another based on the words that you speak. And to remember that when life feels discouraging, you can look up and remember that you are not alone in this great big world. So I'm going to leave you with a quick prayer. Lord, thank you so much for everyone who listened today, for everyone who's hearing my voice. Thank you that you can encourage them through me, Lord. I thank you for your words of wisdom that you shared with us. And Lord, I just ask that you would encourage and remind us all to be careful with our words, to allow our lives to go in the best direction possible by choosing words that will speak love and encouragement to others. To remember to look up and remember that you are there with us, that you love us, you're always there beside us, and that we can trust in you. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Look Up.